Hi, it's Ted Ritzer. I'm the host of the Greening Government webinar speaker series. And that series is a collaboration between my department, Alberta Environment and Parks, the Alberta Climate Change Office, and also the Municipal Climate Change Action Center. Our audience is essentially all government workers in Alberta. It doesn't matter what level of government, whether it's federal, provincial, city, local, municipal districts. And the intent of this series is to help governments in Alberta lower their carbon footprint and also to grow their green economy. And today we're very fortunate to be joined by a speaker originally from London and has got incredible qualifications from the London School of Economics, and also has got a master's in engineering as well, Rachel Mock. But she's been attracted to North America. She works for the World Bank out of Washington, and today Rachel has kindly agreed to present on the World Bank's program as far as its mitigation action assessment protocol. But it's also interesting because it's open source, and I'm pretty sure that any government in the world could use this to help them with their efforts in response to climate change. So that said, Rachel, you'll have up to a maximum of 40 minutes to present. You don't have to use all 40 minutes, and then that'll be followed by a Q&A up to a maximum of 20 minutes, and I'll monitor the online Q&A window. So folks that have tuned in, if you kind of poke around the interface, you'll find that Q&A window that you can start to post questions there for Rachel to answer. But with that said, I will turn it over to Rachel Mock. Thanks so much, Rachel.
Thanks a lot, Ted. So hi, everyone. Thanks a lot for having me here today. I work primarily on the World Bank's carbon markets and innovation practice, and I primarily support the Network Carbon Markets Initiative, which is essentially an innovation platform that's supporting the development of post-2020 international climate markets. So as Ted mentioned, I primarily want to introduce one tool that our team developed called the Mitigation Action Assessment Protocol, or MAAP online interface. But before I go straight into the presentation, I'd like to maybe show you a quick 3-minute how-to video, which hopefully will give you a rough idea of the objectives and structure of the MAAP. Actions from the bottom up with the hope of encouraging a wide. Can you hear this okay, or is it not? Is the sound not working?
Try it again, Rachel.
All right.
The Paris Agreement represents a new direction in global efforts to curb climate change. Unlike the Kyoto Protocol, which employed a down approach to defined mechanisms, it asked countries to develop their NDC goals and mitigation actions from the bottom up.
Sorry, Rachel, you'll have to pause.
A wide range of ideas.
Yeah?
Yeah, you'll have to restart that. Sorry, Rachel.
Is it not working, the sound?
Yeah, for whatever reason, we're getting some feedback with that video. So we'll just, if you just try and reload, and then we'll give it another whirl. How's that?
Of course.
The Paris Agreement represents a new direction in global efforts to curb climate change. Unlike the Kyoto Protocol, which employed a top-down approach of defined mechanisms, it asked countries to develop their NDC goals and mitigation actions from the bottom up, with the hope of encouraging a wide range of ideas. But without an established way to design, assess, and compare diverse mitigation actions, then measure their success in meeting NDC targets, it's difficult to implement effective programs or establish carbon markets that could organically drive climate ambition and lower costs. The Mitigation Action Assessment Protocol, or MAAP, addresses this challenge. An open-source database, MAAP establishes a transparent, independent framework to help governments design, assess, and compare mitigation efforts across the globe as they develop their own actions. By connecting the international community to a central source of information, MAAP provides insight, supporting effective design and implementation. Drives meaningful comparability to facilitate prioritization and benchmarking within and between jurisdictions. supports environmental integrity to increase investor confidence in viability and risk, and ultimately creates the foundation for new networked carbon markets with liquidity, scale, and long-term stable pricing. MAAP's online interface is easy to access and navigate for any registered user. Start at the homepage to get an overview of content and access a range of e-learning tools. Create a query based on result name, development phase, sector, country, jurisdiction type, mitigation action type, result status, and date modified to search and generate specific results. Review data visualizations to easily compare and benchmark projects on a range of criteria. Then take a deeper dive into individual actions for more details, and share your results with other partners and investors. If you've already designed or executed a mitigation action, add it to the database to contribute to the community and facilitate a self-review. It's easy to create a record, add scores on a range of key indicators, and attach documents to provide more detail and background for your assessment. A complete assessment consists of 4 modules: Mitigation Action Program, Mitigation Action Management Entity, Financial Structure, and Development Benefits. MAAP has already been used to advance more than 140 mitigation efforts worldwide, from low-carbon subnational programs in the Mediterranean region to JCM projects in Mongolia and Vietnam, to action plans in Ecuador and Mexico, and more. So, use MAAP to help you design and assess effective mitigation actions as you work to meet your NDC commitments made in Paris, and share it with others to grow the community, encourage more robust carbon markets, and make an even bigger impact. To learn more and sign up, visit the Mitigation Action Assessment Protocol online today.
Great. Well, I'm glad that worked out the second time. And well, I hope you found that, somewhat interesting and a useful overview of the tool. And now, I guess in terms of the agenda, I'd like to maybe first explain why we think tools like the MAAP is useful and important for our overall strategy for climate and in particular markets. And also, in that context, explain why we think the MAAP came about and why we think it's important to have an online interface for the MAAP. And I will then finally run through some of the key functionalities of the tool using a case study. So I think most of you here would probably agree with me that the Paris Agreement was fairly transformational in a number of ways. So firstly, for example, there's a much greater reliance on transparency to ensure accountability of countries' actions and also track progress towards the global 2-degree goal. And more than 100 countries, including around 70 developing countries, have called for the use of carbon pricing and markets as a cost-effective means to reduce emissions. And as some of you may know, Article 6 of the Paris Agreement also provides a possible means to really advance and link markets and price-based mechanisms at a much larger scale. Although, as we all know, this will depend on the political will and how negotiations will move forward in the future. But when we talk about markets or linking markets, we usually think of linking schemes of the same kind. For example, we think of linking cap and trade systems like the ones between Quebec, California, and in the future, Ontario. Or there are international carbon markets like the one under Kyoto Protocol, like the CDM. But what we actually see emerging in the global policy landscape is a much more diverse set of market and price-based mechanisms like RED Plus or energy efficiency markets, renewable energy markets, feed-in tariffs, etc., etc. And there are also a number of non-market or price-based mechanisms like standards or R&D investments. So, while this diversity is really important for promoting innovation and addressing national priorities, the lack of comparability between and within different types of schemes could make it, increasingly difficult for us to understand what the mitigation outcomes are of the different schemes. Also, the lack of certainty of the functionalities and scope of international markets in the future could also delay the process for us to advance and link markets in a larger scale. So given these sort of state and trends, the World Bank have come up with three main assumptions. So firstly, we think that linking climate actions are desirable, especially when they're at a much larger scale. So for example, the World Bank's State and Trends of Carbon Pricing report estimated that if we were to have comprehensive linking arrangements, we could reduce the cost of achieving countries' nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, by a third in 2030, or by half in 2050. The second assumption, however, is that government and market participants aren't going to link or transfer their climate assets if they don't have the information about the environmental integrity or the robustness of the underlying assets that are being traded. And the third assumption is that the bottom-up development of policies and the resulting heterogeneity of climate actions make this type of information increasingly difficult to collect. So we have a lack of comparability of assets that are being traded. So given these assumptions, the World Bank has decided that it's important for us to continue to work with governments, private sector, consultants, and research groups to try and develop the methodologies to help us better understand what the underlying mitigation outcomes are of different schemes or climate actions. So while we think that in the long run, we hope that this form of information can help us transfer climate assets in a much more liquid and scalable international climate market under the Paris Agreement, we see this as a type of no-regret option, because short and medium run, we hope that enhancing the transparency of mitigation actions can also help support the design and implementation of more robust market-ready climate actions, or guide capacity building and financing decisions, and also track progress towards climate goals. So the MAAP is one such tool that we've tried to develop to achieve some of these goals. So as you can see on this slide, the MAAP is essentially divided into 4 modules: program, management entity, financial structure, and development benefits. Each of these modules are made up of a set of assessment areas and indicators, which all represent what experts consider to be a critical aspect of a robust mitigation action. These modules are all independent from each other, which means that the user can remove or add these indicators as they wish, depending on their preferences and their needs. And there are currently 2 versions of the MAAP, one for actions during the early design stage, and one for climate actions that are more advanced at the implementation stage. And by having this modular approach, we hope that the MAAP could have multiple purposes, as I mentioned earlier. So by offering this sort of checklist of what a robust mitigation action should look like, we hope that it could help governments or project developers design or implement more robust climate actions, as I mentioned before, and by sort of measuring evaluating the capacity of management entities or the overall coherence of the financial structure of the climate action, we hope that this sort of information can also inform donors and investors of the level of risk and viability of different assets. And ultimately, we hope that carbon market regulators could use tools like the MAAP as a basis for accepting carbon assets for international markets, and use it as a way to track and compare the transfer mitigation outcomes across and within jurisdictions. So the MAAP was originally developed as an Excel-based tool, actually back in 2014. And since then, we've gone through a fairly extensive consultation process involving expert reviews from groups like New Climate Institute, IISD, or Asia-LEDs. And from December 2015 onwards, we've also partnered with groups like Gold Standard, Perspectives, UNEP D2 Partnership to really pilot and deploy the MAAP at a much larger scale. And as you can see on this global map, we have really tried to apply to the map to as diverse a group of climate actions as possible. So as you can see, the map has been applied in Mongolia and Vietnam on JCM projects, which is essentially the bilateral crediting mechanisms that Japan has developed. There's also been applied to low carbon city programs in the Mediterranean regions, as well as in Thailand, or NAMAs in Peru and other countries in Latin America, as well as you can see here, energy efficiency plans in Ecuador, and as well as climate action plans in Mexico. So while we have made a lot of progress with the Excel-based tool, we have kind of identified a number of limitations with it as well. So first of all, since it's an Excel-based tool, the information on previous MAP assessments are disaggregated, which makes it quite difficult to track previous results of previous MAP assessments. And second, there's a lack of visualization tool, which makes it fairly difficult to compare and benchmark the scores between different actions or even track progress of the same action that has had multiple MAP assessments. Third, the MAP Excel-based tool isn't designed in a way that allows different users, say consultants and governments, to conduct joint assessments. It also doesn't allow users to share results in a really accessible way. We think that this could add to the time and resources required for each assessment. And finally, there's not a lot of practical guidance on how you could use the Excel-based tool. So the user could have some challenges in terms of deciding the time required for each assessment, or which stakeholders they should be consulting with for the assessments, etc., etc. So the online interface tries to address some of these limitations in a number of ways, as shown on this slide. So first, it tries to provide a more user-friendly platform to increase the accessibility of the MAP tool. It also tries to provide a centralized platform so that users can easily share and gain access to data sets that are generated by partners worldwide. And it also has visualization tools to allow users to more easily compare and benchmark their results. It also tries to increase the practicality of using the tool by having how-to videos, which you saw before this presentation, interactive guidelines that are provided on the help text in the website, as well as a help desk, as well, and a FAQ if you have some questions that have not been addressed in the video or the help text. So now that I've kind of briefly explained how we think MAP as well as other assessment frameworks are important under the Paris Agreement and how it contributes to the World Bank's overall climate market strategy, and why we think an online interface is important for upgrading the Excel-based tool. I'd like to now walk through some of the key functionalities of the tool using a case study. And for this particular case, we decided to look at Barcelona's Low Carbon City Program, PECQ. And this is just a quick slide to show some of the basic information of the climate action. So as you can see here, Barcelona's Low Carbon City Program essentially contributes to the city's own target under the EU's Covenant of Mayors target, which is to reduce emissions associated with municipal activity by 23% by 2020. And it's led by Barcelona City Council and has a number of climate and non-climate targets. For example, it aims to reduce energy consumption, improve air quality, and of course, reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It's also cross-cutting in its scope, as it has a number of projects in various sectors: energy sector, industrial processes, and solid waste management, and so on and so on. So on this, for this case study, I thought it might be helpful to show some screenshots of what the website actually looks like in practice. So since this is an account-based tool, In order to access the tool and database, you have to first create your own account. So in this case, this is my account. And once you've created your account, you can then take a look at the how-to video, related events that are coming up or have passed, related documents, links, as well as take stock of the number of assessments that have been conducted for key sectors, countries, or development phase. So we've divided the phase for design phase and implementation phase. And once you've taken a look at all the background information, you can start by creating your own new assessment. So for Barcelona's Low Carbon City program, we have decided to use all 4 modules. So as I mentioned before, that's the program, management entity, financial structure, and development benefits. So for each of the assessment area and indicators within these modules, you have to, you can use the default weight that have been assigned based on expert reviews, or you can override it by assigning the weight that you think is more relevant to the action that you're being assessed. For this action, we've primarily used the default weight that has been provided by the World Bank. You then can determine the score ranges. There are 3 different score ranges that you could apply to, as you can see here, or you can, again, override it with a specific score range that you think is more appropriate. You can then assign a confidence level, which is low, medium, or high, to reflect the confidence you have in the accuracy of the weights or score that you've applied. You can then provide justifications for the scores and weights that you've applied by adding some justifications in the text box in the observation there. And ultimately, finally, you need to also add evidence in the attachments. So this could include policy documents or other forms of documents that you think are relevant for that specific key indicator. Once you've done all of that, applied all the scores and weights, you can then review the final results in a bar chart or a table format. As you can see here, you can actually compare your own results with the maximum score you could achieve for that particular module based on the weight that you've assigned. This we think is important and helpful for you to identify where you have done better and where you've done worse. So, for example, on this screenshot here, you can see that the Low Carbon City program may not have done so well in the monitoring and reporting assessment area, but it may have done slightly better for the objectives and definition side, which is on the left-hand side of this bar chart, but you can't really see because the text box there is covering a little bit. And also on the left-hand side of the table, the bar chart here, you could also see that overall, the Low Carbon City program has done better for the mitigation action program. So that's module 1. However, it hasn't done so well for the financial structure. So as a user or a government or a donor, you can take a deeper look into these modules to see where exactly you can improve, where exactly you can target your financing and capacity building efforts. So while the results that you've created are strictly confidential, you have the option to share them with other registered users. So these users could simply view your results, or you could give them the privilege to edit the weights and/or scores of the assessments. We think this could be helpful for those who are doing joint assessments or financiers and donors who want to take a look at the final assessment results and see, as I mentioned before, where you could target your capacity building and financing needs. Alternatively, as you can see on the right-hand side of this screenshot, you can also publish your results. So we think that this could be helpful for those users who are trying to reach a wider set of registered users for collaboration or financing opportunities. The results, your own results, as well as the results that have been shared with you or published, are all accessible in the database. And as you can see on this slide, you can search the results that you're more interested in looking at using the filters provided. So that's for development phase, sectors, countries, jurisdiction type. This could be cities or rural areas, etc. Or you could look at the mitigation action type. So this could be project-based, policy-based, program-based, so on, as well as the status. Is it a draft? Is it finalized? And date modified? And once you've selected the results that you're interested in, you can again compare them in a table or a bar chart format. And for this particular example, I've chosen to compare Barcelona's low carbon city program with another low carbon city program in Italy, the city of Palermo, as well as in Spain, in the city of Alicante, as well as I thought it might be interesting to also compare low carbon city programs with a completely different mitigation action, which in this case is the NAMA in the wind sector in Vietnam. So as you can see here, you can compare the results overall for the module, or you could expand the table to look at how these different actions have achieved their results for the specific indicators and assessment areas. You can also, again, compare them in the bar chart format. And what's interesting here is that you can actually benchmark them against, say, the maximum or the average score you could achieve that has been achieved for any assessment that have been conducted within the MAAP tool, or similarly for a specific country or development phase or a type of mitigation action. So you could really compare how your results have done compared to what other data sets that have been generated within the MAAP. You can also compare it against the best score of your own assessments. So now that I've kind of tried to run through some of the key functionalities of the MAAP tool, just some quick concluding remarks. So in conclusion, the World Bank wants to develop tools like the MAAP as a way to respond to the need for reliable and well-synthesized information on the relative risk and effectiveness of mitigation actions, especially given the bottom-up development and resulting heterogeneity of policies, programs, and projects that are being developed across the world. And we think that enhancing the transparency of actions using tools like the MAAP is a no-regret option, because transparency is not just important for markets, but more broadly for a successful implementation of the Paris Agreement, as I mentioned earlier. And by developing tools like the MAAP, we hope that we could support the development of more market-ready and finance-ready actions in the short run. And in the long run, we hope that this could inform the development of more inclusive and scalable international connected climate markets, and inform the development of Article 6 under the Paris Agreement. So if you're interested in learning more about the MAAP, we'll definitely be holding more technical and training workshops across the world, and the information of this will be uploaded to the MAAP online interface homepage. And I think that probably took me around 20 minutes, so we probably have quite a long time for Q&A, so I'm keen to hear your feedback on this.
So I guess for folks, you can pose questions through the online Q&A window, which I'll monitor. As we're waiting for a few questions to come in, though, Rachel, I guess in just sort of the simple approach, how would folks get in touch? And it looks like there's first off, there's no cost for any government to use the tool. Is that correct?
Yes. So in the past, when we used it as an Excel-based tool, we essentially guided, it was a very hand-holding session where we, would go to the country and support the assessment. But now that it's been reviewed, we've gone through a 3-year consultation and piloting process, we think it's ready to be provided as a form of public good. So any user can, create an account and use it as they please.
Okay, so any government, whether it's a local government or provincial or federal, could essentially register for use of the tool and then deploy it at whatever scale their jurisdiction is responsible for? Yes,
exactly, because the idea is that, this tool is essentially trying to cover a wide scope of actions. It's, as I mentioned before, it's very diverse. It's been applied to small scale projects. For example, in Vietnam and Mongolia, we applied it to, specific projects in the energy sector. but it could also be at a larger program scale. For example, like NAMA programs in Mexico or in Peru. So programs are much larger and comprises of different sets of projects within those programs. So the idea is that any governments can apply it to any sort of scale that they wish to.
So Rachel, could you sort of turn back to that one map that shows the deployment of the tool worldwide?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So maybe if you could kind of just chat a bit about some of those deployments, if you could.
Yeah, of course, I'd love to. So I think, your question about what level of governments could use it is quite interesting. So I'd maybe like to walk you through the assessments that we've done with perspectives on low carbon city programs in the Mediterranean region. So these assessments were particularly helpful for cities to showcase their achievements so far, and for them to coordinate and communicate their achievements with governments at the national level. And this is the feedback that we've received from cities like Barcelona and other Mediterranean cities. So this has been extremely helpful for subnational coordination. And similarly in Mexico, we have applied it to state climate plan in the state of Jalisco. And that has again been helpful again for communicating the achievements, and also understanding where the areas for improvements are for their state climate action plan. So this is helpful for national governments to try and understand exactly where I should, target my capacity building and my financing needs.
Okay, so the first question here is, thanks so much for the presentation, Rachel. It's an interesting tool. Do you have to have an account to be able to access the data? I'm not at this point in a position to enter projects, but would like to be able to see what else is being done around the world.
Yes, that's a great question. So the assessments that UNEP DTU perspectives have conducted are public assessments. As I mentioned, you can publish your assessments. So as long as you create an account, you can see the range of published assessments that they've already conducted. And if you have any questions, or if you want to do a test run, you can also do that. But just be aware that every couple of months we do screen the website to make sure that we get rid of any of the sort of fake results, to make sure that the benchmarking values are valid.
Mm-hmm. No, that's excellent. So again, how is there kind of a vetting process to I guess a truth vetting process to make sure that all of the actors are in fact who they say they are, Rachel?
So, well, first of all, the really obviously testing results we definitely remove, or we ask the user to remove as an admin user. But in terms of ensuring the validity of the results, how we've tried to do that is by ensuring that the user has to, first add observations and justifications in the observation box, but also to add attachments and evidence, as I mentioned earlier, and also a confidence level to show that, how confident you are on the accuracy of the results. And of course, it's difficult to make it perfect, that these are completely accurate. And, these default weights are all based on expert reviews, and, how we've tried to ensure that the results are, or the weights are, as valid as possible, is to go through a very in-depth consultation review as well. But in terms of, who the user is and how valid the users are, you could see which user has actually created the result. So you can, I guess, contact them individually to see whether they're a valid user and whether they're actually applying it to their own projects or to a project that's not their own. So that's also possible as well. I don't know if that answers your question.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think kind of when you look at the map, one of the things that's sort of obvious for most folks looking at it is there isn't a lot of presence from within North America as yet, Rachel.
And yes, I think that's essentially because as the World Bank, our focus has been on our clients. So
Mhm.
they're mainly in developing countries. But I think it's important. I think you made a really good point, and it's important for us to compare, actions in developing countries with those in, say, North America. And that's one of the main reasons that we've collaborated with Perspective to apply the MAAP to the Mediterranean regions, which has, of course, developed countries as well included.
Mhm. No, that's excellent. And is there kind of a consortium list of members that folks could take a look at, that who your active participants are, Rachel?
Yes, well, at the moment, the MAAP, you can see those that have contributed to the piloting and the expert reviews, and that's easily accessible on the About page on the MAAP online interface. There's a long list of those that have contributed to the development of the methodology.
Mhm. And of course, for this specific tool and program, you've obviously got a website and you can register, and you have a YouTube channel as well, Rachel, is that correct?
We don't have our own YouTube channel, but we use the World Bank channel. And just to go back on your point on, our partners, I think it's really important to also clarify that, the map will never be finalized per se. Like it will always be evolving based on, how the Paris Agreement will be operationalized, what stakeholders consider to be important aspects of a mitigation action. So, we always continue to identify collaboration opportunities with other groups and ensure that there's no overlap with other independent assessment frameworks that are out there. And I'm happy to provide more information on that if that's of interest.
Well, this is a wonderful project, and I think it's kind of a good example of global, what I would call best practice sharing, and the fact that the folks from Alberta have been able to tune in, and of course, as I mentioned, Rachel, it will be posted to our YouTube channel, and I'll send you an email with that link as soon as it's posted. I just ask sort of a final call of folks that are listening, if you would like to post any additional questions through the online Q&A window, please do so. We're very fortunate to have Rachel present, so it's a wonderful opportunity. So I'll just scroll down, and this tool seems firmly focused on GHG mitigation actions. Is there anything similar happening WRT adaptation actions?
Absolutely. I think that's a really great question, and one that has, kind of popped up in other presentations. So yes, our focus has mainly been on mitigation actions, but as in the case in Mexico, the stakeholder, the government has actually found that it is, part of the tool is also applicable to actions in the adaptation world. For example, if we look at management entity, financial structure, that's also, elements of it is definitely applicable to actions in the adaptation side. So following the launch of the online interface, we're actually very interested in maybe adding another module, or creating a tool like the MAAP but called APP, so the Adaptation Action Assessment Protocol. So tweaking it so that it's fully applicable to adaptation actions would be something that we would be very interested in doing so in the future. And hopefully, I'm happy to keep you updated. You can contact me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we can move that forward as well.
No, that's excellent, Rachel. Now, folks, any more questions for Rachel before she leaves us? Thanks for your presentation, Rachel. You discussed a lot of cities. Have many provinces or subnational states used the tool?
Sorry, subnational states, yes. So Jalisco is probably our main example for that, where it's at the state level that they've applied it to their climate action plan. And what was the other part? Sorry, subnationals and
provinces?
Yeah, I think, the first one that, springs to mind is Jalisco. That's probably at the state level. On the other hand, I think primarily we have focused on either national level or city level. but I'd love to apply it to more state level actions in addition to the one that we've done in Mexico. So if there's opportunities to do that, please let me know.
Yep, absolutely. So I guess last call for more questions, folks. This has been fascinating, and I think that this whole ability to do this kind of digital carbon-free best practice sharing. I mean, you're in Washington, but you could be in London for all that matters, and we could be exposed to the very best and brightest, which I think we're being exposed to right now, Rachel.
I mean, thank you very much for the opportunity. I think there might be a question. I just saw that my Q&A popped up.
Yes. Have you had any participants applying the tools to green building actions?
I might need to check on that one. I think that there should be one on the building sector, but I'm not entirely sure on that, because at the moment we have an independent assessment. If you look on the left-hand side of the MAAP, UNEP DTU is actually applying it to a number of actions, and I'm not sure if one of the NAMAs that it has been applied to was in the building sector. So in any case, I think this would be a public assessment, so I can take a look, or if you could, pop me an email, I'd love to, send that information over once I've double checked.
Yep. So I guess sort of in closing, Rachel, maybe you should give us the best link for folks to check out things.
Yes, the best link would be the maapworldbank.org. So you can just Google it, and then it should come up, or you can just put in maap.worldbank.org. And I'm really keen to get more feedback. We just launched the online version, and it's definitely a work in progress. We definitely want to continue to upgrade it. So if you have any more feedback or interested in an assessment or our World Bank support for this assessment, please contact me via email. It's rmok@worldbank.org. So please feel free to contact me there. And a similar presentation slides to this is already on the online interface on the related document. So please feel free to take a look at that as well.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Rachel, for agreeing to do this. And it's just been such a pleasure to be exposed to this wonderful program of yours.
Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity. This has been really helpful.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.